Hi, my name is Sushma and I work as the Assistant General Manager at the Global Council for the Promotion of International Trade. Hello and welcome. We are, but sorry. Hello and welcome. We are broadcasting live from the Global Council of Global Business Services. Today, the global business services landscape is undergoing a significant transformation. Organizations are moving beyond traditional shared services and increasingly embracing global capability centers, intelligent automation, artificial intelligence, digital transformation, data driven operations, and strategic business services to build more agile, resilient, and future ready enterprises. Global Council of Global Business Services brings together GBS leaders, CXOs, technology experts, service providers, innovators, researchers, policymakers, and business transformation leaders from across the global ecosystem. Through this initiative, we aim to connect our global leaders, accelerate knowledge exchange, encourage cross border collaboration, and support the next generation of global business services and capability centers. Our Global Council ecosystem brings together specialized platform focused on GBS and GCC transformation, technology and IP, sustainable and ESG, workforce and employment, cybersecurity, digitalization, economic development, circular economy, future-ready workplaces, and infrastructure. Together with their specialized firms, these councils connect global leaders, innovators, investors, policymakers, and industry experts to drive knowledge sharing, cross border collaboration, innovation, and sustainable business growth. Operating across our primary global hubs in India, Singapore, UAE, Saudi Arabia, the USA, the UK, Switzerland, the EU, South Africa, Kenya, Ghana, and Nigeria. We are bridging the gap between raw potential and institutional deployment. Today, as part of our visionary interview series, we are delighted to welcome a distinguished leader who brings valuable experiences and perspectives to the global business services ecosystem. Please welcome our distinguished visionary speaker, Manish Sarpotdar. Manish is a transformation focused finance and IT leader with more than 2 decades of experience, helping organizations modernize operating models, strengthen shared services, and adopt digital first wave of working. He currently serves as head PMO at JSW GBS Limited, where he leads digital transformation and automation initiatives across finance, procurement, and HR. Throughout his career, he has led large scale transformation programs, including bank reconciliation across more than 500 accounts and the enterprise rollout of open text VIM across more than 150 legal entities. He brings a strong techno functional understanding of finance, including P2P, O2C, R2R, FP&A, MIS, tax analytics, SAP, P2P platforms, investment systems, and GRC tools. Manish is passionate about combining process excellence, technology, AI, and people capabilities to build agile, intelligent, and insight led support functions that enable business strategies. Manish, thank you for joining us today and for sharing your valuable experience with the Global Council of Global Business Services community.
My pleasure. So thanks for inviting me, firstly, to this forum, right? So quickly introducing about myself, about 25 odd years of experience in finance, HR operations, and procurement. So my journey goes from the actual end user into various finance processes, and therein I diverted to various SAP modules, and therein my role got converted to techno functional, and currently I am heading the robotic process automation COE for entire JSW group. And at a GBS level, I head the digital transformation initiatives, which are primarily focusing on the robotic process automation, RPA, intelligent document processing, intelligent, uh, you can say the agentic AI, and so on.
Thank you for sharing your insights. So, I'd like to ask a few questions to explore your experience and visit in greater depth. So, moving to my first question, you have more than 2 decades of experience across finance, IT, shared services, and enterprise transformation. How do you see global business services evolving from transform like traditional services delivery organizations into strategic enterprise transformation partners over the next 3 to 5 years?
Right. So when this journey started, this is started as a transaction processing centers, right, to optimize the cost, centralize the operations, right, and therein the technology got intervened, the systems or processes got automated by RPA and equivalent technologies, right. So the focus got shifted how those consolidated transactions can be automated in terms of processing, right. But nowadays, in the era of agentic AI, right, a lot of deterministic work is also done by the technology, right? Therein, the focus comes on how the governance can be brought into picture, how when the data is kind of getting processed and analyzed, how those will get converted into decision, right? So GBS is not merely a transaction processing center, but it is a business partner, and right from the data which it has in its custody, how it translates into a business insight, which leads to a decision making. That's how the whole journey is all about, right? In coming days, which is typically 3 to 5 years, right? GBS will act as a business partner, right? And the parent organizations or the captive centers will be able to deliver the value in terms of giving the relevant insights, which will drive the business in a context. Not able to hear.
Sorry. Thank you for sharing those valuable insights. It is clear that the GBS or GBCs is increasingly moving beyond service delivery towards becoming a strategic partner of like enterprise transformation. So, moving to my next question, you have currently led digital PMO and automation initiatives across finance, procurement, and HR. What are the biggest challenges organizations face when scaling RPA, advanced analytics, generative AI, and agentic AI across shared service operations, and how can they overcome them?
I think there are a couple of challenges. The biggest challenge is not the technology, but the real challenge is we assume certain things which are so-called happy path scenarios, right? Basically, what happens in a complex setup, like in our kind of a organization, wherein there are different types of businesses, different legal entities come into picture. There are different varieties, right? And these varieties needs to be covered in the original requirement gathering, right? Also, the question comes that people pursue it in a different way, that it may convert, it may lead to a job loss, let's say, for example. So that we need to give a right messaging that these digital transformations are going to enhance their roles, right? It is going to complement or support their roles, not it is going to we are going to give a pink slip to them, right? So the right messaging needs to be given to them. That's one of the point to be considered. And end of the day, what is very important is all the stakeholders should be aligned towards the same vision. Because what happens is that, let's say there is IT organization, there is business users, and there are a couple of others, right, who are not aligned to the agenda. So aligning those stakeholders to the common agenda is also one of the challenge that can be addressed by appropriate communication.
Yes. Thank you. That's very practical perspective.
Yeah.
Like scaling emerging technologies requires more than technology implementation. So, moving to my next question, you have led large transformation programs, including bank reconciliation across more than 500 accounts and open text VIM development, like deployment across more than 150 legal entities. What have these large scale programs taught you about standardization, governance, stakeholder alignment, and managing transformation across complex organizations?
Yeah, the partial answer I already gave in my previous answer, but taking an example of a bank reconciliation, right? It was a multi-entity setup, about 500 odd accounts into 150 entities, right? In my previous organization, right? So it is not a good idea to assume that everybody will give a statement in a standard format, right? There is something called MT940 in SAP Parallels, right? So that is not practical. There are commercial implications and so on, right? So we created a flexible solution which is RPA based, right? Wherein those respective bank statements it is able to convert into standard uploadable format, and therein we made it flexible, by which so it is in a way a standard but not standard in a context, right? So
Yes.
that's how it should be flexible enough to accommodate all the requirements. So that was one of the biggest learning. And stakeholder management is also important key, because everybody asks that what it is for me, how it is going to impact my role, my job, etc., right? So addressing that in a right spirit definitely helps, and that is what I have practically experienced myself in my current and previous journeys.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing those insights. And moving to my next question, as AI and automation increasingly become part of GBS operations, how can organizations balance productivity gains with responsible AI, data security, governance, workforce transformation, and the need of reskill employees?
Right. So AI governance is a very commonly discussed topic in nowadays, right? It has two elements in my view, right? One of the element is, the cybersecurity and infosec perspective of it, wherein the new age platforms, say for example Azure Foundry or equivalent, right? Now those platforms are having the inbuilt features, functionalities to take those guardrails, like PI data, for example, right? So that will be taken care if you are able to select the right platform, right? In my view, what is very important is we need to treat the agents just like a human employees, right? So what are the roles, right? uh, Accesses given to them, and are they remaining in their boundaries, or they are going beyond their boundaries? So all that access control and their behavior needs to be monitored, just like we do audit of a normal employees, that say for example what roles a particular employee has in a particular ERP, right? So that is what is important, and we should do that so that the appropriate controls can be brought into picture, right? From a adoption perspective, what is also important is human in the loop, because ultimately these agents will work in tandem with the employees, let's say, right? So it becomes very important to learn how to collaborate with agent, right? So human is interacting with the technology, that is a skill by itself, right? And one needs to upskill that, and then we obviously have to implement those upskilling programs, that so that it can be effectively interaction can be effective, let's say, right? So that is all about it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for those excellent points. The future of GBS will depend not only on adopting AI and automation as well. So, moving to my next question, with your strong experience across finance, advanced analytics, SAP, MIS, GRC, and digital platforms, how can organizations build a truly data driven finance functions where real time insights, predictive analytics, and AI support better forecasting, risk management, and strategic decision making?
Right. So what is important is selecting a right platform, because all these solutions can be seen as a broken solutions, because let's say the dashboard, for example, or the analytics pro, right? The one way of looking into it is you have a different solutions for it, but another way of looking into it is we can have a consolidated platform which is catering all the requirements, right? So again, just to give a same example, like Azure Foundry or a Databricks kind of a platform is able to give all these requirements, right? So you can onboard AI agents on the same. You can link Power BI dashboard to the same data lake, right? So in essence, selecting a right platform and a technical architecture is very important key to achieve those objectives of a digital finance transformation.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that perspectives. So, moving to my next question. As GBS organizations increasingly adopt automation, generative AI, and agentic AI, how should leaders rethink workforce capabilities, operating models, and career developments to ensure employees can work effectively alongside intelligent technologies?
All right. So some part I already covered. When we do our future hiring, we need to ensure that they are, let's say, AI savvy. They need to able to interact with AI platforms, agentic AI systems, and so on, right? So they should be digitally savvy, right? What is also important is we need to, as a leaders, we need to very clearly demarcate the roles, the job roles, right? The one which is typical transaction processing, which can be replaced by your technology, and one which is purely a decision making, right? So, right from JD creation till onboarding and to all those HR decisions, right? We need to really have a real look that in an earlier way of working, one JD was meant for a human resource that could be probably replaced by agent or any other equivalent technology, right? So that skill assessment needs to be also done, and training and continuous learning is the key for success.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for sharing those valuable insights. So, building future ready talent will be just as important as implementing the technology itself.
Right.
Thank you, Manish, for sharing those experience. Moving to my next question. With your experience across P2P, O2C, R2R, FP&A, and enterprise platforms, how can organizations identify which business process should be automated, augmented by AI, or fundamentally redesigned to achieve sustainable improvements in efficiency and customer experience?
That is a very important question because a lot of people get confused in this, right? So selecting a right process, and identifying the right candidate for automation is the first important step in any digital transformation journey, right? So it depends. So if it is typically a rule-based and repetitive, then it's a RPA candidate, right? If any deterministic work is to be done, then it's a AI candidate, right? So take an example of P2P, right? So therein lot of mundane jobs are there, like reading the fields from a face of invoice, punching into the ERP like SAP, right? And then there are various checks and balances to be done, like comparing it with three-way or four-way, comparing with purchase order or contract, right? So all these are deterministic job, wherein and heavily text based, right? So because all those terms and conditions will be written in a text, right, which needs to be interpreted in a right spirit, right? And what is also important is you're on which side. If it is a vendor scenario, right? Whether it is from a customer side or a vendor side, right? Whether we are paying or whether we are receiving, right? And then the right interpretation of that clause needs to be done based on the favor, which favor we are talking about, for example, right? So all those nuances needs to be studied, and then the appropriate decision is to be taken. Wherever it is highly judgmental and the decision is going to be changed every time, then obviously it is not a AI candidate person, right?
Yes.
Also, what is important is the transaction volume, because agentic AI is a fancy word also, right? And just because others are doing, we should not make a hurry to onboard that use case. We need to really see what is the volume, what is the benefit, what is the token cost, and whether ROI is coming out or no. That assessment also needs to be done.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for sharing those valuable insights. So, taking a process first approach can help organizations ensure the technology is solving the right business problems rather than simply automating existing process. So, moving to our next question. As organizations invest heavily in digital transformation, automation, and AI across GBS functions, what metrics or outcomes should leaders use to determine whether these initiatives are genuinely creating business values beyond cost reduction?
Right. So one of the important analysis is done is a business case, basically, right? Because every amount we spend needs to be reflected into benefit or ROI, right? So definitely, the first ever step to be taken is to create a right business case. Okay.
Mhm.
Uh, when we say cost reduction, it is depending on the perspective, right? So, for example, in our case, we are not really looking for a cost reduction, but we are talking about a capacity creation, right? The way our organization is growing, the need of GBS in terms of sizing is going to definitely increase twofold, threefold, right? And it is not a wise idea for that growth. We just go on hiring the people, right? So we need to really think that what something can be done, and then obviously the technology will come into play. So, coming to the point, the business case. Also, the another aspect is the analytics, right? Now, humanly, there are certain things, certain use cases that cannot be interpreted in a straight way, which because of the complexity, because of the lot of data points, and so on, right? Therein, the new age technologies, which are AI based, etc., will come into play, right? So, end of the day, what is important is what value I am giving to the customer in terms of business insight, in terms of analytics, in terms of decision points. That will be some of the KPIs. Those are some of the KPIs needs to be considered by the modern leaders.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing those valuable insights. Moving to my next question. Looking ahead over the next 5 to 10 years, what do you believe will the biggest changes in finance and GBS operating models? And what should organizations start doing today to remain competitive, agile, and future ready?
Right. So, finance in a broad way has two aspects in my view. One is the transaction processing, and another one is the insights drawing out of it, right? Now, the data entry or the transaction processing will be definitely taken over by the technology in next 5 to 10 years. I gave example of a vendor invoice punching in a system, right? So the new platforms does it at a click of a button, right? So the transaction processing obviously is not to be considered, right? Now imagine that is already done, right? So what analysis or what analytics coming out of that, right? So what is my cost base, right? What are the type of spend where some optimization can be done, right? So these are some of the analytics can be done if you're taking example of a P2P as a domain, right? So the focus is not on the punching, but focus is interpreting what it is actually, right? And the traditional ERPs are not able to catch hold of some of the problems like duplicate and so on, right? because though there were possibilities of manipulating the data, right? So for example, 123 and 123 space, right? The ERP will not capture it.
Yes.
But with AI coming into picture, these obviously are getting caught, right?
Mhm.
So some of the analysis is already done by those modern ERPs and AI technologies, right? So how this can be taken to the next level is something the employees or the human or the people will have to look into it.
Yes. Thank you. Those are excellent insights. Your perspective gives us a valuable view how finance and GBS can evolve alongside technology, changing business models and new ways of working. Thank you for sharing those excellence. Moving to my next question. With your experience in generative AI, agentic AI, advanced analytics, and finance transformation, how can organizations move using AI primarily for task automation toward using it as a strategic decision, support capability across finance, procurement, and HR?
So what is important is learning those tools and how effectively we use it. Because take a simple example of a co-pilot, right? What we know as an end users is just give a prompt and it will give me answer, right? So from that generative part to the agentic part, right? So that journey one needs to understand from a feature and functionality perspective
Mm-hmm.
and adopt it, right?
Yes.
So if I'm getting few emails on a daily basis and then I'm doing the same repetitive action, right? I can basically write a flow and create an agent wherein this can be done autonomously, right? So what is important from organization point of view is making those tools available, which are safe and secured from a organization network point of view, because there are a lot of free AI tools available. That those should be restricted basically, because end of the day the organization data should not go out of the network, right? So those federated AI tools should be made available, and the corresponding training also needs to be given so that they can effectively getting used.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing that perspective. The evaluation for automation to intelligent decision making, how GBS functions contribute to enterprise strategy. Moving to our final question. Global Council of Global Business Services aims to create a global ecosystem connecting like GBS and GCC leaders, technology providers, innovators, investors, and policymakers. Based on your experience, how can platforms like Global Council of Global Business Services accelerate cross-border technology transfer, share best the practices, support new GCC development, and help organizations adopt emerging technologies more efficiently?
Right, that is very important question. So when you say GBS, from a functions perspective, you will have a similar setup. You will have typically finance, SCM, procurement, HR operations, and so on, right? So the point I'm making is, lot of organizations are simultaneously trying to solve the same problem, right, on their own, right? Now, platform like GCGBS, wherein networking can be done, and then the best practices can be shared, so that the problem which is solved by one colleague can be shared as a best practices. Also, from a technology landscape perspective, a lot of organization use similar technologies, ERPs like SAP, right?
Yes.
Therein, some of the features, functionalities also can be leveraged, because maybe it is not potentially adopted to its fullest, right? Some of the features and functionalities of a ERP, right? So those small things also will make a big difference in terms of sharing the best practices, right?
Mhm.
So platform like this will be able to collaborate and share the best practices. What are some of the tools and technologies are getting used? Those can be leveraged, and definitely it will be a win-win situation for all the members.
Yes. Thank you, Manish. I think that gives our audience a lot to reflect on. What an insightful and valuable conversation with you. Thank you for sharing your expertise and perspectives with the Global
Thank
Council of Global Business Services Community. Your experience demonstrate like how the convergence of business process, technology, AI, automation, and people capabilities can transform GBS from a traditional services delivery function into a strategic enterprise transformation partner. Thank you to everyone joining us from around the world. Thank you for being part of today's session. The future of global business services will be shaped by innovation, intelligent technology, skill, talent, responsible transformation, and strong global collaboration. Until next time, keep innovative, keep collaborating, and together let's shape the future of global business services. Thank you, Manish, for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.